Parker Schnabel is now one of the biggest and most powerful landowners in the Klondike.
We've spent the last 5 years looking for a massive project and we just got one. I should be stoked.
Parker Schnabel, the famous miner from Gold Rush, is a guy who's all about chasing gold and sniffing out hidden treasures. He's got a real talent for it. While digging for his next big payday, he's stumbled across some wild stuff, like ancient relics buried in the dirt. But recently, he found something downright creepy that left everyone stunned. So, what was this spine-chilling discovery? Let's dive into Parker's latest adventure and uncover the mystery. Before proceeding further, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Parker's not just a gold guy, he's a treasure hunter at heart. Alongside piles of shiny nuggets, he's dug up some seriously cool things. In an interview, he teased that miners like him often trip over weird old stuff, saying, "There's a ton buried out here." One of his craziest finds? A pair of woolly mammoth tusks, huge ivory beauties pulled from Alaska's frozen ground. These tusks were in such great shape, you'd never guess mammoths vanished thousands of years ago. Up in Alaska, mammoth tusks pop up every now and then, and they're worth a fortune. Collectors will fork over $1 million for a perfect one. While Parker and his Gold Rush crew might not have struck gold-level cash with these, the tusks are still some of the priciest goodies in the mining game. Picture this. Parker's team is digging away, and boom! There's a giant tusk sticking out of the ground. "It's a frickin' tusk, dude!" someone yells. And yeah, it's massive, mammoth-sized, literally. How big? Amazingly big. But here's the thing. Parker's not rushing to sell them. Getting the permits to cash in is a headache. And honestly, he doesn't need the money. He's already raked in millions from gold. Instead, he's stoked to keep these ancient treasures for himself. He's got them displayed in his collection, where the tusks and some giant mammoth teeth steal the show. For Parker, they're like the ultimate trophies of his mining career. Proof he's got a gift for finding the weird and wonderful while everyone else is stuck shoveling mud. And it's not just Parker with the cool finds. His Gold Rush buddy Tony Beats has been in on the action too. Mining's not only about gold, it's about hitting the jackpot with history. Tony was working his new spot at Paradise Hills when he spotted a tusk poking out of the earth. With his son Mike and a few tools, they yanked it out. That tusk wasn't just big, it had a story to tell, making it one of Tony's standout discoveries. At first, people thought it was a jawbone, but nope. Paleontologists swooped in and said, "That's a woolly mammoth tusk." They even think it's tied to other bones found nearby, maybe from way back during the Klondike Gold Rush, over 100 years ago. Word on the street was that Tony Beats, another Gold Rush star, had dug up horse and zebra bones before. But this mammoth tusk? That's the real deal. Gold Rush says it's from a baby mammoth, frozen in the icy ground for over 30,000 years. Talk about a chilly time capsule. Miners have a knack for finding more than just gold. They dig up all kinds of weird and wacky stuff that makes them scratch their heads in wonder. Take Australia, for example. Since its first big gold rush kicked off in 1851, miners in Victoria's Golden Triangle have hauled out nearly 2,500 tons of gold. Insane, right? Meanwhile, Parker Schnabel had his own jaw-dropping moment on Gold Rush, Parker's Trail, Season 4, Episode 2. He came face-to-face with a replica of the Welcome Stranger, the biggest gold nugget ever found. Parker and his buddy Fred Lewis teamed up with Tyler Mahoney, a fourth-generation Aussie gold hunter. She casually showed off 4,000 pounds worth of gold she'd found, just chilling in the back of her truck, like it was no big deal. Now, the real Welcome Stranger was a monster, so huge They had to smash it into 3 pieces just to weigh it at the bank. Today, it'd be worth about $4.7 million. Sadly, the original got melted down into gold bars ages ago, but 2 replicas still exist. One's in Melbourne's old Treasury building, and the other belongs to the Dean family. Back in the 1850s, the Victorian gold rush in Australia pulled in dreamers from all over the world, hoping to strike it rich. In 1869, 2 miners from Cornwall, John Deason and Richard Oates, hit the jackpot near Moleagle. They found this massive nugget wrapped in quartz, so big they couldn't even weigh it whole. They hauled it 12 miles to the London Chartered Bank in Dunolly, broke it apart, and all that's left now is a sketch of their epic find. Fast forward to today, and Parker Schnabel knows mining's no walk in the park. In Season 10, his crew dug up something wild, the electrified nugget. This 41.8-ounce beauty looked like lightning bolts frozen in gold. A dendritic crystal formation, if you want the fancy term. The $1 Million Paydays episode showed it off, and its cool pattern made it worth way more than just its weight. That find cemented Parker's rep as a guy who doesn't just find gold, he finds awesome gold. Season 7 was a game-changer for Parker Schnabel. Things were falling apart, equipment breaking down, gold hauls all over the place, but Parker didn't quit. With some slick new tech and smart business moves, he powered through. Episodes like Eureka, Payday, and King of the Klondike showed off his never-give-up attitude. By the middle of the season, his hard work paid off big time. He scored enough cash to grow his operation and snag some fancy new gear. But let's be real, Parker's had his share of flops too. Even with millions in the bank, he's taken some tough hits. Up in Alaska, Parker and his crew dumped a ton of money into a mining spot, only to pull up a measly 108 ounces of gold from old leftovers. Their big hope was the Wolf Cut, an untouched patch they figured held over 2,000 ounces. Jackpot territory. They spent 2 months digging to reach it. But then, bam! A monster flood wrecked everything. Fresh off finding mammoth tusks and that welcome stranger replica, Parker was about to face his wildest challenge yet. After patching up a busted wall in the Wolf Cut, Parker's team went full throttle, racing to mine it out. This could have been the biggest payday gold rush had ever seen. Mining's a roller coaster. Huge wins dangled in front of you, but then floods, broken machines, and bad luck can snatch it all away. For every Parker Schnabel or John Deason who strikes it rich, tons of others walk away with nothing but busted dreams and empty pockets. After the flood mess, Parker pulled his crew together to rethink their plan. They fought back the water and finally secured the goods. The team's leader, Mark Force, went down to check it out, and Parker was pumped to see if this risky bet would pay off. He dug through the dirt and hit finer gravel, a tiny glimmer of hope. Just when it looked like things were turning around, disaster struck again. A hole ripped open in the wall, and a wall of mud and water came roaring in. They tried to stop it, but the flood just kept coming. Then, while digging at the bottom, an excavator smacked into the pit wall, uncovering an old flooded mine shaft. Millions of gallons of water gushed back in, drowning all their hard-won pay dirt. The crew had prepped with an 8-inch pump, but it was like bringing a squirt gun to a tsunami. They threw in a second pump. Still no dice. Water was pouring in from everywhere, and they had to yank the pump from the wash plant just to keep things from totally collapsing. Parker should have been there calling the shots, but he was MIA, not answering his phone, leaving the team scrambling. Tyler had to make a gutsy call. Shut down the wash plant, yank its pump, and team it up with 2 others to fight the flood. With 3 pumps running full blast, the crew stepped back and let them do their thing. In just 24 hours, they sucked out 10 million gallons of water. When Parker finally showed up, he was expecting high fives and good news about the wolf cut. Instead, he got an earful about the flood that had turned his site into a mess. But the water woes didn't stop there. The wolf cut, Parker's golden ticket, was hit with another soggy disaster. He had no clue how bad it'd get or how much Mother Nature would throw at him in Alaska. He'd spotted a shiny streak of gold in this 4-acre patch and was betting on at least $1 million this season. The gold-rich pay dirt was buried 30 feet down, but first they had to clear 1,000 yards of junk dirt on top. Trouble was, they were digging dangerously close to an old pond. Just 4 more feet, and they'd be underwater. Another 30 feet to bedrock, and the whole plan was hanging by a thread. Water was the enemy here. One slip, and it'd all go wrong. Thankfully, frozen mud was their MVP, acting like a wall to keep the water out. John Barbara, a new guy on the team, was put in charge of managing the mud and holding back the flood. But the ground was getting suspiciously soggy, and he made a panicked call to Parker. If this fell apart, the whole season could tank. As they dug more, the mud turned into a sloppy nightmare, spreading like a bad cold. They'd only scratched a fifth of the wolf cut, and it was pinned right next to that sneaky pond. A shaky berm, basically a dirt wall, was all that stood between them and disaster. At first, a layer of frozen ice kept the water at bay, but then the permafrost cracked. Pond water started leaking through, and the cut turned into a swamp. The crew freaked out as the water rose, threatening to wash away their gold dreams. Parker jumped into action, deciding to dig a deep sump pond right in the cut and drop in an 8-inch pump to suck it dry. He wasn't about to let water win again. They set it up, crossed their fingers, and waited till morning, feeling pretty good about their fix. But the next day, total shock. The pump was gone, and instead of dry land, they were staring at a lake. The flood had swallowed the pump whole, now sitting 4 feet underwater. They were this close to losing $500,000. Tyson had to grab a kayak, hook it to the excavator with a chain, and paddle out just to fish the drowned pump out of the mess. Mark Force, the foreman, figured out the mess. Junk clogging the pump's filter had let the water win, swallowing it whole. He ripped apart the engine and patched it up, but the damage was already done. After the roller coaster of setbacks at the Wolf Cut, Parker was ready to chase a new gold streak, one that could make them rich if they could survive the brutal Klondike wilds. Over at Parker Schnabel's Yukon site, his trusty sidekick Mitch Blaschke was gunning for the impossible, mining a jaw-dropping 90 acres in one season. Talk about a big swing. Parker's no stranger to tough times, but he doesn't let losses slow him down. After all the chaos, he pulled off something insane, finishing a season with $14 million in gold. It left miners and fans speechless. He and his crew were teetering on the edge of a season that could rewrite gold mining history. Every scoop of dirt was a do-or-die moment from day one. The pressure was intense. Parker hustled nonstop, rallying his team to dig out that precious gold streak. Alaska's harsh weather and busted gear pushed them to their limits, testing their guts and grit. Parker had to play it smart, weighing every risk while guiding his crew through rugged land. Everyone expected big things, and he wasn't about to back down. He was convinced the Klondike was hiding a life-changing fortune. After a long, hard fight, they hit the jackpot, a thick vein of gold buried under frozen dirt. The camp buzzed with excitement. This could flip their whole season. The Klondike finally gave up its treasure after kicking them down over and over. Digging it out was still a beast of a job, But Parker wasn't fazed. Word of their monster find spread fast, and suddenly all eyes were on them. Fans cheering, doubters watching. The heat was on, but with $1 million prize in reach, they raced the clock as winter crept closer. Giant machines roared to life, tearing into the gold-packed ground. In the gold room, the vibe was electric, thrilling but nerve-wracking. Time was running out, but the reward was worth every sweaty second. Parker's years of ups and downs had sharpened him into a leader who could handle the madness. They fought to save their season, and when the dust settled, Parker grinned in disbelief. "We've got $14 million in gold." "How much did we pull this season?" he asked. 8,118 ounces, came the reply. Nearly $14 million. Miners, fans, even the haters were floored. This gold rush season was one for the Klondike history books. Parker even snagged $364,000 extra after talking a newbie into moving a rig called Lucifer. He loved showing off his wins, but here's the twist. Even with all that gold, he was stuck in a $15 million debt hole. Daily expenses and endless repairs hung over him like a storm cloud. He was chasing a $60 million dream in the Dominion, but the stress was gnawing at him. "It's tough," he admitted, his usual toughness cracking a bit. But he wasn't alone. His crew had his back, ready to face whatever came next. Tyson was carrying the team on his back, tackling every job to keep things rolling. He locked down mining rights from Ken Todd Lowe and Stuart Schmidt, and jumped into the massive task of getting the operation back on track. But no one saw it coming. The first cut turned into a total mess, dragging on way longer than anyone thought. Parker felt the heat rising fast. He was counting on Tyson to step up big time. Parker's grit never faltered, even as he juggled prepping the new site and fixing up El Dorado. He figured he had time to spare, but when he started setting up the new plant pad, reality hit. He was way behind. Trouble at El Dorado piled up, leaving everyone wondering, would Parker's unstoppable drive pull them through? Or was the gold slipping out of reach? Parker and Tyson were neck-deep in the El Dorado project, and moving the wash plant was a beast of a job, a make-or-break moment for Tyson. They had all the gear they needed, but time? That was running out fast. The deadline was Sunday, and only a win would keep the operation alive. Money woes, tricky challenges, and the chase for the Dominion jackpot were brewing a wild storm they had to steer through. Cash was tight, with unpaid bills stacking up and daily costs eating away at them. Parker knew he'd need every bit of his stubborn spirit to push past this mess. Each day threw a new curveball, but he kept his eyes on the gold at the end of the tunnel. The crew powered through brutal hours in rough conditions, determined to make it work. Tyson, Mark, and the gang stuck with Parker, battling the rugged land for their shot at millions. The Dominion gamble was everything. Win big or lose it all. Parker pointed to a spot on the map. This creek run is loaded with gold, and where it hits the Dominion, right here, that's our target. We need cash flowing in soon, or we're toast. This season was do or die for Parker's future in gold mining. The payoff could be huge, but so could the fall. Every speck of gold they clawed from the icy dirt and muddy water was a lifeline for their next move. So, the crew kept digging, never letting up, fighting for their dreams one scoop at a time. This season was a wild ride for Parker and his crew, full of big wins and gut-punching lows. But through it all, they stuck together, refusing to give up. After endless hours of digging, planning, and fighting the odds, they hit a gold mine. Literally. Their risky bet paid off with a dazzling $14 million haul. As the season wrapped up, Parker stood with his team, grinning at their epic score, a victory they'd be bragging about for years. But watching this crazy adventure play out, you couldn't help but wonder, would Parker's big dream actually work? Or would the money troubles and non-stop headaches drag him under? In the Dominion, a tough-as-nails place where gold rules everything and fortunes flip in a flash, Parker was walking a tightrope. His hopes of hitting the jackpot were barely hanging on as cash problems chipped away at his business. The heat was brutal, blanketing everything and making you wonder how anyone could keep going in that furnace. Dominion means power, but out here, gold hunters like Parker made their own rules. The team's grit was awesome, but blazing heat waves pushed them to their limits. Over casual chats, you could hear how rough it was, working sunrise to sunset under a scorching sun. They were gearing up to move Lucifer, a massive wash plant, but it wasn't a done deal yet. The crew needed more practice before hauling it to a new spot. Tyson, one of Parker's go-to guys, was dead set on making things smoother. His big plan? Get the wash plant running before the sun peaked up. The tension was thick as he prepped for the move. Tyson drew the short straw, shifting Lucifer, a 90,000-pound beast sitting on a wobbly base. He had to get creative, rigging up makeshift gear to hold the machine's weight without it all crashing down. The whole thing was a rushed, stressful mess, and Tyson was feeling the heat, big time. Alec and Liam, who'd helped with a move before, jumped in to back him up. Meanwhile, Evan Kurtz, a newbie at hauling wash plants, was sweating bullets trying to wrangle the giant rig. Things got trickier. They had to lug Lucifer's parts, swing them around, and lower them onto the new pad using a 750 excavator. Tyson and Evan teamed up, inching along as they shifted the first pieces to their new home. This wasn't just a tough job, it was a huge leap in the crazy world of gold mining, where every move could be a game changer or a total bust. Taking apart Lucifer piece by piece was a wild gamble, equal parts heart-pounding and risky. Everyone watching couldn't help but wonder, would this gutsy move lead Parker and his crew to the treasure they were chasing? Or would it be the slip-up that tanked everything? Tyson knew he'd need the 750 excavator to drag that hulking machine up the hill to its new spot. The crew faced a real nail-biter, tackling the steep, tricky ground. But bit by bit, Lucifer climbed to the new pad. Tyson was the mastermind here, using every trick he had to nudge the giant forward. The team was wiped out from the effort, but Tyson's clever ideas kept them in the game. This do-or-die moment was the ultimate test for their season in the Dominion. If they nailed it, Parker would be one step closer to his big seasonal goal. How they handled this tricky setup would decide if the whole operation soared or crashed. When the wash plant finally stood tall on its new pad, the crew felt pumped, like they'd conquered something huge. Building the conveyor and hopper feeder was a win all on its own, a sure sign that gold was about to start flowing now that the high-stakes move was done. A shiny $364,000 gold prize was calling their name. For now, the headaches were behind them, and the crew was buzzing to see what happened next. Did Parker Schnabel really hit the jackpot, or is the Klondike Gold Rush just a slick TV story? Tell us what you think. Drop a comment, hit that like button, and subscribe for more.